Jay Baba. I just wanted to welcome everybody to Amartithi celebration. We're starting today with Charles Haynes. I wanted to share a little bit, if you don't mind, Charles. We met about 50 years ago. I was in my 20s and Charles was a toddler.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
We met in the back of a van. I was shooting pool in the back room of a bar, and two Baba lovers came in and said to me, "Come on, come on. We've got Charles Haynes out in the van. You got to meet him. You got to meet him." And so I put down my pool cue and out we went. And we didn't go very far or for very long before we were in an accident. And Charles immediately, I remember myself thinking, as the van went over onto its side, what it would feel like to lose consciousness. I was all into like, what's it going to feel like? And I hear Charles saying, "God is real, all else is illusion." Now I'm saying it wrong. "Inscribe these words in your heart." And so he said, "God alone is real, all else is illusion." And then he started taking Baba's name. And then, of course, we all lit our flame. We started taking the name of Baba. And that's how Charles and I met. And it was kind of a dramatic time and introduction. He was coming to celebrate, I think it was probably Baba's birthday in Pittsburgh with some other Baba lovers at the time. And it was being recorded by our local television station. And Charles was going to speak, and Bob Brown sang, and Irwin showed a film. And anyway, it was lovely, but it started off with Charles and I like peas in a pod rolling around in this van and taking Baba's name. So without further ado, Charles, I love you so much, and it's good to see you today. Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba, Ruth, that's a wonderful story. I've forgotten that. And we survived too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the rolling in the van part, I wasn't sure where you're going with that, but it was an accident. It was a complete accident.
Complete accident. And we went over onto the side. We completely flipped over and landed upright. And the only thing that got damaged, aside from, I think, one guy's knees, was the photograph of Baba. I think it had been, I don't know if it had been, anyway, it was a beautiful photo, big photo of Baba. And the back window of the van flew open and the picture of Baba flew out, landed on the ground. I don't even know if the glass broke. But that was the only thing that took any injury was Baba's picture. And when someone ran up to us to see how we were, it was a gentleman who had a son who knew of Baba and loved Baba.
God.
It was just, anyway, Charles, I'm done talking. It's good to see you, Baba.
Good to see
Now,
you.
what happened to the picture of Baba?
Well, we just picked it up off the ground and put it back in the van and continued on.
Yeah, I think we used it at the venue, didn't we? We used it.
Yes, exactly right.
Wonderful, amazing.
Great, Baba.
Gosh, 50 years ago. Wow, and we're still here. Well, it's wonderful to be with everybody. It's so great to see you, and I appreciate my dear husband joining us with COVID from another room. It just doesn't go away. And but anyway, he's with us. It's a wonderful time of year, Amartithi for us and to celebrate. And I guess everyone knows that it's the eternal date, Baba called it, or I think that Baba coined the term. But anyway, eternal date is close enough to what it means. And when he laid aside his physical body, and I've always felt that the loveliest message for me anyway that Baba gave that seems just right for Amartithi is when Baba says these familiar words to everybody, I'm sure, The divine beloved is always with you, in you, and around you. Know that you are not separate from him. Those who are united in love know no separation. And that just seems to me to be the perfect Amartithi quote. As Elizabeth might say at this point, that says it all, and it does. It says it all. Now, there have been times, and this may have happened to you too, there have been times when someone who's not very familiar with Baba will ask something like, well, why do Baba's followers celebrate on January 31st? Yeah, I mean, isn't that the day he died? Isn't that a sad day for grief and so forth? And and for me, the best answer to that, and maybe it's the same for you, is to tell them what Baba said about it. And Baba said, I am never born, I never die. Yet every moment I take birth and undergo death. The countless illusory births and deaths are necessary landmarks in the progression of man's consciousness to truth, a prelude to the real death and the real birth. Real death, Baba says, is when one dies to self, and real birth is when, dying to self, one is born in God to live forever his eternal life consciously. So this, of course, means that Baba did not die on January 31st, 1969. I mean, I guess if you're cheeky in answering the question, you could say, well, yes, he died, but it was eons and eons ago when he died. He died the real death. And since then, he can't die. Now, when the avatar leaves his human form, we use the phrase that some people find who don't know much about Baba, they find kind of odd. He drops his body. I used to say after Baba did drop the body and the phrase became used in the Baba world, I would say at meetings and such, well, so-and-so disciple dropped their body. They dropped their body. And then Mani corrected me at one point. He said, well, we say only Baba dropped the body. I mean, when we die, just the body dies and we have no choice in the matter, but Baba chooses when and how he's going to leave his human form. So only Baba, well, maybe perfect masters, drop the body. The rest of us have no choice, right? It just goes. What does this mean, though, for the world or for his lovers? I mean, every year at Amartithi, I think I like to sort of take time to reflect, what is the meaning? And of course, it's endless meaning in our limited mind, so we can always meditate on it or think about it, and there'll be something new or something deeper than we thought before. The meaning of Amartithi. It's beyond us, but still we try to grasp it. Well, Elizabeth, as usual in my life, I think she put it best. And I want to apologize to some of you for telling this story again, because I love to tell it, particularly on Amartithi. I just can't resist, because to me it captures so much about this day. Anyway, this happened a few weeks after Baba dropped the body. And I happened to be at home from college because of the time, with everybody, to be with my mother and Kitty and all, in the aftermath of Baba leaving his form. And so I happened to be there, and Elizabeth called me over from Maher House to Delruba, and she said, minister. My minister is here, Dr. DeBose, and I knew him. You know, I went to church with Elizabeth when I was home. So I knew Dr. DeBose, very sweet man. And he would, Methodist minister, and he would sometimes come to the center on his own, and he would walk around and to write his sermons. He loved the atmosphere so much. So he's very, very kind, loving person. And he came, and of course, it was a pastoral visit because that's what he does. When someone dies in the family, he goes and he pays the pastoral visit and offers comfort and condolences and so forth. So that's why he was there. And you know, I being the person that went with Elizabeth to church and went to seminary and all that, so I was always called over when there was any sort of ministerial thing involved. And so I went over to Del Ruba and we sat, the three of us, in the living room. And Dr. DeBose, you know, was appropriately, you know, somber. You know, you have to be if somebody dies. And Elizabeth was sitting there looking her usual placid self, and I'm there. And he said, you know, he begins offering his condolences to her. And he says, you know, Mrs. Patterson, I have heard that Meher Baba passed away, and I know how close you were to him and how much he meant to you. So I just want to say I know how much you must miss him. And Elizabeth looked up, and she looked rather startled well, she just looked up and startled, surprised, you know, and she said, "Oh," very spontaneously, she said, "Oh, no, you see, he's so much more available now." And I never forgot that moment. Because when she said it, I felt it. 54 years later, I still feel it. I still feel it. It rang so true to me then and now. And I was thinking about that this week, anticipation of sharing about Bob on this special time and during the special time. And I thought, why does that ring so true? And I thought, well, there are at least two ways, and there are probably many more, but at least two ways that are me, very profound ways in which that's true, that Meher Baba is available as the avatar of this age, as the beloved. Well, the first is that he is the avatar. So the first way in which he's available is as avatar. And from what I've been able to gather from Baba over the years, every person in the world, I guess there are 7 billion of us now, and indeed every living thing, not just every person, now receives, each according to readiness and capacity and so forth, a significant spiritual push forward by his availability, by his coming, his being avatar of this age. So that's the first way. And simultaneously, the entire world is undergoing what can only be called the greatest transformation of consciousness in recorded history, right? And Baba told us before he dropped the body, he said, this is what would happen. It's never happened before, he said. Something great never happened before. The avatar is changing everything in ways so immense, so fast, that we who live in the middle of this story, his story, we're unable to even grasp the scope and meaning of his universal work. It's beyond our grasp. And that's the first way, it seems to me, that Baba is available, more available. I would say in the great cycle of time of avatars that we know about, Baba, now I'm quoting Baba, it's not my idea. In the great cycle of time, this is the most he's been available. The most. It's the greatest manifestation. in that long cycle of time. And the second way, of course, and this is where we come in, you and I, so wonderful to be with people at this time and in this intimate way, and I can say with confidence, because I know most of you, if not all of you, uh, that we are the lovers, right? Uh, we are the lovers. And Meher Baba is more available than ever as the divine beloved now, which is also, I think, what Elizabeth meant. Yes, he's available to the world as the avatar. They don't. The world doesn't know that what's happening is due to Meher Baba, who was the avatar, and so forth and so on. And maybe they will one day. Maybe they won't. That's entirely Baba's call, right? I mean, Baba may do that. He may not do that. It doesn't matter really whether they know the name or not. But the lovers of Baba, he's available not so much as avatar, although that's true for us. I would say, and I'll speak for myself, he's available as the beloved. He's available as the divine beloved. Right? That's not the role he plays in the lives of all these other folks. Very significant role, a spiritual push forward, transformation of consciousness. I mean, that's a great thing. But it's not the same as the role he plays in the life of the lover. The lover, for the lover, he's the beloved. He's the beloved. And each lover of Baba that I know, I'm pretty sure this is true, each of us has their own beautiful, deeply personal experience of his presence, of his availability, his companionship in our lives, each of us. And why is that? It's because Baba's awakening himself in the hearts of those whose destiny it is to be lovers of the beloved, not followers of the avatar, not members of this group or that religion or whatever. That's all well and good. But there are few, and here I'm quoting Baba, it's not my thought that there are few. Baba says there are always only a few, really, amongst the great crowds of people that uh, are his lovers, prepared to surrender all for the sake of love. So we're still among the few when we talk about the lovers of Baba. I mean, one day there'll be many, many people who know of Meher Baba and take him in many different ways, and that'll be a different way of speaking. It's so lovely to be still able to speak of him as the beloved with lovers and everybody knows what that means. It's the language of love can be shared because we all share that love. Thanks to Baba. He gives us that to share. So the beloved may feel more available to us now than ever, but the truth is, Baba says, and here's, I think, the most important thing that came to me, at least, the truth is, Baba, the beloved, is always available to those prepared to surrender to him, those whose destiny is to become that lover, that disciple, that companion, that one who just wants to be with him. And he's always available. Somebody said, oh, well, 100 years, Baba said, after he drops his body, he's more available and so forth and so on. So we got to hurry up because, we only have 100 years. Or, there's always this sense of 100. And I mean, I don't want to be glib about it, or I mean, that's very interesting. And I'm sure that's true for the Avatar. In fact, I asked Erich that, and Erich said, yeah, Baba said that, yeah, he would be, yeah, freely giving himself as Avatar for that 100 years. Then he said, after that, he will have to be approached. But then Erich added, Baba said, after Baba told us that, he said, but I am always available. I don't give any thought to the 100 years one way or the other, frankly, because it doesn't have anything to do with me. As the lover of Baba, it doesn't matter whether this is the Avatar period or not, or whether this is manifestation or not. It really doesn't make any difference. That's all the story of the illusion, I mean, that's the story of the world and the universe, and all very interesting part of the dream, but it isn't mine. It's not my dream. So 100 years, 200 years, 700 years, it doesn't matter. That's all to me zero. Now, that's just my view. But as a lover of Baba, I'm looking to be with the beloved. It doesn't matter. All these other things about decades and years and so forth. He's always present as the beloved. In the love game, he has to be. And here's the thing that he's always absent as the beloved. He's always present, and he's always absent. Every lover of God experiences this. It is the nature of being the lover of the beloved to simultaneously experience him as present and absent. That's the love game. Yeah, the heart of the love game. I remember when, the touchstones in my life, and as you know, are the moments, the wonderful moments that Baba gave me, when he was in the form, and so I go back to them obviously over and again, but time and again. But one of them was, of course, the first time I met Baba, and during that first meeting, this, and maybe minutes into the meeting, I don't know, because the time was not clear to me now or then how long I was in the lagoon cabin, and and all that. All I can tell you is standing next to his chair at that first meeting, already feeling that I had always known him. He was so familiar to me. I didn't have the words, but it just felt like I was home. I was back with him. That's what it felt. And so I stood next to him as though we were long lost friends, and I looked at him and he looked at me. So he was seated in the chair in the lagoon cabin. I was 8 years old, so I was about the height of his eyes, you could say. Yeah, I mean, so I looked over at him and he looked at me. We were eye to eye because of that. And then he asked me the only thing he ever asked me, as far as I can remember. It was enough. One question is enough. He asked me out of nowhere. There was no context to it exactly. Baba just asked me. And I heard the question, but I'm honestly, the fact that somebody else said it was not, I could not, that part didn't occur to me. It seemed to me right from Baba. His silence was not noticeable to me. It really wasn't. Anyway, he asked, would you like to go where I live? And I thought, in my mind immediately came India, because one of the few things I knew about him, facts as it were, was that he lived in India. Anyway, that flashed into my head. And so without thinking, without pausing, it was just instantaneous. I blurted out, yes, yes. Baba, Baba looked very pleased at the answer. I'm so glad I said yes. I've often thought this would not be such a great story if I had said no. I would not be telling you this story. But I said yes by his grace. Baba provokes the answer he wants in us. And I mean, I was 8 years old. What did I know? So I didn't know what to say, but it came out. By his grace, it came out. I said yes. And Baba then went like this, means done. Baba said, you will. And I took that to heart. And it still is the promise and the hope of my existence, the promise of living, going to live where he is, whatever that means. So when he actually left the center physically, when he left and went back to India, I didn't get to go. But so, and I mean, I can't say I expected to go at 8 years old exactly. I mean, I was not completely unrealistic, but Erich, many years later, showed me his little book that he kept, his little notebook that he kept, where he jotted down everything, that he could to remind himself of each person and what Baba had said, what orders he had given, and all of that, what key things, like what do you call it? A memory device. So that when Baba saw that person again or they corresponded, Erich could tell Baba, this is so-and-so. You gave them this order and all that. He was Baba's memory, you see. Baba took on not knowing, as you know. To be human, he did, but he relied on Erich to remember Jane has a theater and so forth and so on. She has 3 children, like that. Not many things, just a few little things next to each name. And Erich said, would you like to see how you are remembered? I said, yeah, I would like that. So he took me in his little room, his little bedroom at Meherzad. And he brought out that little, it was like a little black book, so funny enough. And he went to the part, the 1958, where he jotted down the names and something next to each name and all that. And next to my name, he said he had written down, wants to live in India with Baba. And I thought, well, of all the ways to be remembered, that's one that I would choose, because I knew Baba had promised that it would be true, not necessarily India, but that in some deep way that I would come to live where he lives. So that's the promise, you see. But he was gone. I mean, for the child, he was gone. He left. I mean, it was only, what, a week and a half or 2 weeks? I don't even, whatever the number of days. And I had to struggle to get time with him because I was supposed to be in school and all that. So it was hard enough. But then, and I was deeply in love, and I couldn't bear not seeing him each day and all that. And then he wasn't there. He left. And I remember feeling uh, a mixture of joy at knowing him and pain at his separation from me. Every lover feels this, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know this was going to be the lifelong experience. But, what I did to help with that is I would walk around the center, where I had been with him. I would walk in the woods. I would walk near Lagoon Cabin, the barn, and all that, his house. And I could feel him there, Well, one can still feel him there, yes. Yeah, you can still feel him there. It's not, Baba never didn't leave there in that sense. But I didn't know, but I did feel him there. And, I would make up things in my head, about him. And I wrote a poem, really very, one of the worst poems ever written. I mean, thank goodness I was 8, so that's my excuse. Really terrible. I was almost 9. You'd think I'd be a bit better at it than that, but it was pretty bad. But I love that poem. I still do, because it was the first expression of my love, in words for Baba. Uh, and it was later sent to India. I guess Mother Elizabeth decided to send it to Baba, and read out to Baba. Baba loved it too. So there you are. It doesn't have to be a good poem. It just has to be from the heart. Anyway, I would wander around the center, and that was my first experience of what all of you know. He was present, and he was absent at the same time. In fact, the very presence of Baba, the greater I felt his presence, the greater the pain of separation. May sound paradoxical, but I think you know what I mean. The more I felt him present around the center, the more I longed to be with him and him alone. It's not, the longing for him is not because we don't have him or don't feel him. It's precisely because we do. To get a taste of it, of that love, you only want more. If you had no taste of it, you don't long for something, you don't know what it is. But once he gives you that, then he knows. He's got you hooked. The divine drug, if you will. His love is like that. It's addicting. And a little bit, then you have to have a little more, then a little more, And then you feel terrible pain because you don't have enough. It's like that. So my experience is such that I can talk about the being in his physical presence as an introduction to this presence and absence. But of course, Baba doesn't need the physical form to introduce his presence. His lovers who love him, have given their lives to him, may have been with him physically in some past time or may whatever, many times. But it's not contingent on that. What it is when he gives a feeling of his presence to the lover. And that can come anytime, any place. It's not necessarily when he's in physical form. In fact, as you well know, every one of you knows this, many people met him physically and that didn't happen. Why? Because he didn't allow it. It wasn't time. It wasn't their portion. Oh, they may have felt he's a lovely person, or they may have felt his warmth, his humor, and all that. But until Baba makes his presence known, it doesn't matter whether he's in the form or not. It won't make any difference. Nevertheless, his coming in human form is clearly extremely important for everyone in the world. I mean, he has to come in human form. He has to be a human being in order to do the avataric work that I talked about earlier, or to do or to be the beloved. Why? Because the beloved has to give us clues to who he is, you know? And the clues he gives are when he takes form, particularly, right? And that's when he scatters here in our world the clues, the stepping stones to him in our hearts. I mean, even the image of him, Meher Baba, Jesus of Nazareth, Gautama the Buddha, the image of him, the name is the clue, you know? He invests in the name, in the image, so much so that for eons afterwards, those who already see him in their hearts when they see that image. So yes, of course, he has to take human form and live among us. He's not a magician. He doesn't sit in some celestial realm and wave a wand and people, feel love for him as the beloved. The beloved is personal, as you know. The beloved is deeply personal. The beloved is a person, a person. The beloved has certain ways about him that no one else has. Does things in a certain way that is distinctive to him. He has a fragrance that's distinctive to him. He has a touch that only he has. These are the things that we learn when we hear the story of him, when we see the image of him, when we read the words he left. We get these clues. We get the fragrance, we get the touch, we get they're not him. And Baba didn't want us to substitute for the real beloved all these other things that he left behind. then it becomes something different. It becomes a religion, you could say, and that's fine. As Erich would say, everyone has their portion. And he leaves, things so that everyone gets the portion. Think of the great mosque or whatever. Yeah, it is a mosque, right? Built in India. Erich told us this, and I think maybe he took us near there on one trip. I don't remember. But he'd said, you know, there is only what is there, he said. Why have all these people come for so many, many hundreds of years? Why have they come to this place? And Erich said, because there is in there, in that place, one hair from his head. One hair. Erich said, see, that's how it is. So yes, he comes. He leaves the clues. People build huge buildings around the clue and worship the clue and fight over it. The wars are fought over who gets this thing and who gets that thing, the piece of this cross or that hair of his head, and so forth and so on. The lovers don't. The real lovers of God could care less about who gets this or that, but they like to have the clue. They collect the clue. They want to be on, they want to be able to follow the scent, if you will, of the beloved. I grew up, of course, with two women, or more, but let's just say the two, Elizabeth and Kitty. I would count my mother as one of them, and Margaret, of course. There, but I grew up with them. My mother was like this as well. So Kitty, Elizabeth, Jane. I grew up with them as people who knew his ways. Because he revealed that. Partly he revealed it, yes, living with him in the ashram and all that. They, very fortunate, but they weren't, Baba didn't give them the clue to his ways just for themselves. It was, but it was also for many, many other people. So I could see every day, I learned from them, picked it up, and it becomes almost like yeah, like an intuitive thing, where, yeah, this is Baba. This is how this is Baba. This is not Baba. And I'm sure there are many of you out there thinking, yeah, I know what you mean. I know. I can, yeah. After a while, you just know this is Baba. You can feel this is Baba. And then sometimes you think, no, this is not Baba. When something happens that seems like when something, you come across a knot that you can't undo, or something, some terribly difficult uh, challenge, and then something that opens up, you know how that is. And Elizabeth would always say, oh, you see, Baba has turned the key. I love that expression. Or she would say sometimes, if something were just really almost impossible, she would say, well, now, let's see if Baba turns the key. Yeah, he may not. But one gets to the point where you sort of know what that means. You can feel what that means. And you can accept whether he does or doesn't, because it's up to him to exercise his grace or not. Well, that's up to Baba. And he knows if it's best or not, he knows. So how would we recognize the beloved in ourselves unless he took human form, lived amongst us as a human being, fully human being. That's why he took on ignorance. That's why he took on physical suffering and all of those things, not just to change consciousness in the world, that's true, but also so that his lovers could identify fully with him. And eventually, all of these clues Baba gave are for one thing and one thing only. And that is, he said, so that we can one day see him as he really is, so that we can open our eyes and see him as he really is. The more clues we have, the more we love him. The more we recognize his loving ways, the more we feel his love around us, in us. And Baba says eventually that love will enable you to see me as I really am. And that must be why Baba had these odd first words to my mother Jane when she met him in this lifetime for the first time, also in the lagoon cabin, the day before I met him, or no, 2 days before. That's why the first words were, Jane, do not look at this body. This is not Baba. What a thing to say. But yeah, that is not Baba, but it's the clue that he gives. Now, I actually, an early trip after Baba dropped the body, I asked Erich because I genuinely was not, I genuinely wanted to know. As someone who had the blessed fortune of being with him physically, however briefly in this lifetime, I wanted to know. I said, Erich, there are now, what, hundreds or thousands of people, young people. This is now, what, early 70s, who, in the 60s, when Baba was still in the body, the late 60s, 66, 67, all that, there were so many people hearing his name and seeing his photograph and knowing, recognizing, falling with him, in love with him. They knew this is my beloved. They loved him. And of course, being the lover of the beloved, they wanted a glimpse. Naturally, they thought, yes, now we can actually be with him physically. We can actually, be in his physical presence. What a thing. They recognized him. They didn't want to be in his physical presence so that maybe it would be him. They wanted to be in his physical presence because they knew it was him, which is something very, very different. It wasn't curiosity. And believe me, many people came to darshan programs in India over Baba's lifetime out of that curiosity, or because he had a reputation as a great something something, and maybe they would get a blessing. So yes, but that's not how it was with these young people, uh, some of whom probably here today as older people. But no, these folks, they knew. Many of them knew exactly who he was. And of course, they wanted to be in his physical presence. Who wouldn't? And so Baba was there in seclusion. And so I asked Erich, I said, Erich, why do you think when so many people long just for a glimpse, 5 minutes, 1 minute, why didn't Baba allow that? They longed for him. They longed to be with him. They would have been happy with just a glimpse of him, desperate for that moment in his presence. Why didn't Baba allow that? And you know what Eric said to me? He said, that is why. That is why. Then I realized, yeah, it's the intense longing for the beloved that leads to the awakening in our hearts, eventually, of who he really is. If that means being in his physical presence, then he gives it. If it means not doing it because it would be ignite a greater longing, he does it. And that's his gift. That's his gift. His gift isn't being with him in a certain way at a certain time. His gift is opening our eyes and seeing him as he really is. Now, having said that, of course, those people who lived in his physical proximity, those whose, every breath was to care for his physical body, felt deep shock and pain when he left his form. No one felt that more than, of course, Mara, the beloved of the beloved, right? No one. In fact, it was Mara's grief that gave us any sense of what the pain of separation really means. Grief was there. Others had grief, but it was her grief that represented all of us. So how did he respond, the beloved? Well, you know that story. Of course, Baba did respond in a natural way, so that when she would looked out her window a few weeks, I guess it was, after he dropped the body, and she saw his face on the tree outside her bedroom window, on the very spot that she remembered where Baba had stood when she watched him one day in the garden talking to people, and he put his hand on that spot and he said, I like this tree. And she knew. She knew. He's still present with her. Yes, she misses his form, but he's present. And then she knew even more when the young lovers did come. You see, that Baba had said will come. Baba said, you will see. You will see my love. They will come. And they did. And so Mara then had this flow of his love through these young people coming to her porch. So yeah, Baba, the beloved, responded to her. Of course he would. I wanted to share very, maybe my most precious moment with her. And I don't think I've shared this before with people much, but it's one of those things that's so, you sort of keep to yourself. But anyway, it was, I don't know which, it was the early 70s, let's just say. Those visits in the early 70s all sort of seem like one visit to me now. But anyway, it was the first one, I'm pretty sure. And I think the reason I think it was the first one is because, it was startling to me to be with Mera. I mean, in 1969 at the Darshan, because of what Baba had given her to know that she could now see men, before he dropped the body, he let her know the time had come when he let her meet Harry Kinmore and all that. You know that story. Anyway, so she, at 69 Darshan, greeted men. She didn't spend much time or embrace, obviously, but she greeted me personally for the first time I saw her. Growing up with Elizabeth, who was very, very strict about Mira, probably more strict than she needed to be, but I mean, she just took very, very literally everything Baba said about Mira, and she never let me as a boy see a photograph of Mira. I didn't even see a photograph. She never spoke of her in my presence. Never. So you can imagine me going over to India in the 70s and early 70s, and there she was, right? Not only saying Jai Baba from, across, a distance, but, sitting there talking and all that. And there were very few Westerners at that visit, I think. When we first arrived, there were maybe 3 or 4 of us Westerners, something like that. Not very small number of people. Then a few more came after a few days. It got up to 12 at one point during my visit there. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, now we're going to be crowded out. There's 12 people. Erich will have all these 12 people around them, and we won't we won't we won't be able to be as near, boy. Those were the days. And so Mara, early in the visit, asked me to come into the house, Baba's house. And she wanted to show me around, show me everything. And it was just me. And I'm sure I wasn't really paying attention that Meru was behind me, nearby, because Mera would never have been just alone with me. But it was such an unintrusive presence that I didn't even think of it, right? None of the other women were there that day. It was just Mara taking me around to show me the house, like that. Here is the dining room. Here's where Baba sat. Here are things that he used to eat. And how she was, in every little detail. And Baba would do that. Baba did this and Baba did that. And then he got up and he walked over to this place and all that. And she told me every little detail of what happened in that room before, we were going to go to each room. And we did go to each room. Baba's bedroom being, of course, the last and the fullest. But before we got to Baba's bedroom, we were you all who've been there can picture, the dining room, and it's sort of a dining room plus some sort of living area. Goher's bed was there outside Baba's room. If those of you who've been there can picture, Goher's bed. And then I don't know if it's still there or what, but there's some sort of cabinet-like thing just before you get to the door to Baba's room. There's some sort of cabinet-like furniture, and on top of it, there was a number of things. I'm very bad visual memory, but there were a number of things, and one, of course, the thing I do remember is a beautiful photograph of Baba up there. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, and it was a beautiful photograph of Baba. And she stopped to say, she said, this is, see how beautiful he is. Look at this, how beautiful Baba is. And his hair is so lovely and all that. She was describing Baba in this photograph, as only she could do. And I was naturally transfixed by this. And then she moved the photograph and she said, "What do you think?" I said, "What? Look behind. What do you see?" And behind Baba's photograph, she had this colored image. And I could tell one of the figures was Krishna because it was blue colored with the crown. You know, you've seen that image. And I looked and there was a woman sort of enfolded in his arms. I thought maybe that's Radha, you know? I mean, Radha and Krishna, yes, must be. She said, no. She said, no, that's Mira. I said, that's Mira. Yes, she said, that's, you know, not, you do not know Saint Mira. I said, no. She said, oh, you see, Baba told us the story of Saint Mira. And so she told me, you know, and it didn't matter for Mira how long she stood in a certain place to tell the detail of a story. It did not matter. Time, place, it didn't matter. Once she started the story, it, she lived the story. And so she told us the whole, me was us, it was just me, the whole story of Saint Mira, which I had never heard before. And she said, you know how Baba also liked the poems, some of the poems that had been put to music that Mira gave, and Baba had them played out. And so Baba loved Saint Mira very much, and she loved Krishna so much. And I won't tell the whole story, but as many of you know the story, she was persecuted because she was supposed to be, she was married off like you happens, you know, it was arranged. Then she didn't want that to happen, so she would hide in her bedroom in this new home, and with devotion to only Krishna. She only thing she took with her from her family home was a statue of the Lord Krishna that she worshipped every day in her room. And so she took that with her. And so it was just she and this statue, you see. And when people would ask her about her husband, she said, I am married to Krishna. This is my husband. And her in-laws tried to kill her more than once, poison her and all that. I mean, of course, there's outrage at her behavior, but she persisted in her love for Krishna. Why am I telling you this? Well, Mara told me, so I'm telling you, but also because Mira did not live in the time of Lord Krishna's physical body, but Lord Krishna came to her. In the end, she merges into Lord Krishna, the statue. So he can come anytime, any way, when love is there. And Mara, after finishing the story, she looked down, she looked very, very, you know how she could look very shy and hesitant. And she said, now I will tell you something. I said, yes. She said, you know, Baba said that I am like Mira. And she was, you could tell how much that meant to her. I read later that Baba had said that Mira's love for him was greater than the love of Radha and Mira combined. Can you imagine? So when beloved Baba tells his lovers he is always with us, that he is closer than our own breath, Baba means it. I'm sure many of you would think at this point, as I did, as I was thinking about this myself in that moment at Meherzad, of that wonderful story, which I won't tell the whole story because you, I'm sure, know it pretty well, of Harry Gilmore after Baba dropped the body. And it's a wonderful thing, this story. It is. Harry wanted to live in India with Baba. And speaking of which, and he would bring it up with Baba. And, Baba had a very soft spot for him. Harry was blind, so Baba, helped make up for that by letting Harry touch his face. And then every morning he would reach up and touch Harry's chin, say, "Oh, Harry, did you shave well today? Let me see." Because Baba liked very close shave. "Did you shave well?" So he was very tasked, he touched Harry a lot, however you say. And he made Harry feel, like he could see Baba, as it were. So he had a soft spot for Harry. And Harry, of course, loved Baba so very much. And uh, so Harry would bring this thing up about coming and living, being one of the Mandali, right? Well, Harry always said, "Well, Baba said I'm the only Western Mandali." Well, I don't know what that means, but Baba probably told him all sorts of things. Baba spoiled Harry terribly. Let him call him on the phone at Guru Prasad. So anyway, Harry got away with a lot, and Baba did spoil him. He loved Harry. So point is, one day, and this must have been 68. Yeah, it was 68. Yeah, so yeah, Harry was there, sometimes he would just be able to come there, right, and see Baba. So he came, and for a short visit, Baba let him come, even though Baba was in seclusion. And Harry brought it up again. "Baba, I want to come. I want to live here. Enough of this. You said I could come." And Baba said, "Yeah." Baba says, "Yes, true, I have said." Erich told me all this. Now, I know there's a written account, but this is my account. So, who other accounts, this is what I gathered from Erich. And Erich said that Baba said to him, "Yeah, yeah, it's true. I've told you that." Baba said, "All right. Next year, next summer, means year from now. This is Baba's at Guru Prasad. This is 68 summer. Next year, you come for a month and you see, how do you like it? Do you want to live here? A testing ground, you see, a month. And then if you like it, you can stay." Harry was very happy. "Oh, Baba, that's wonderful, Baba. Wonderful news. Thank you, Baba." Like that. And then he left. And Erich told me this, and I don't think he'd mind if I shared it with you. Erich said his heart sank. He said, "Oh God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?" Because, of course, when Harry came, who had to take care of him? Erich. Who had to take him for walks and all that? Erich. Erich, who was always occupied with taking care of Baba. And so Erich said to Baba, he said, "Baba, Baba, what am I to do if he comes? I'm here. I have to take care of you, isn't it? Yeah, your health is not good and all that. What am I to do? You see how he is when he's here and all that. You have to take him for the walks and all that. Baba, he can't see. Yeah, so I have to be there with him. Who else is going to do that? Baba says, yeah, I know. Baba said, I know. But Baba, you've told him to come next summer. Baba said, don't worry. I'll take care of it. And of course, then Baba dropped the body. you know, in the meantime. And Harry, bereft, asked Eric, well, should I still come this summer? What to do now? Now he's not here physically. I mean, do I come for the month? Do I not come? What? And Eric, who is nothing but love and kindness, knew how much Harry wanted to at least be. So he said, he encouraged him. He said, if you have made that appointment, if he has given you that appointment, then you should come. Why not? He gave that to you. And so Harry came. But Eric said, how he was. He was not the old Harry at all. Yeah, nothing like it. Yeah, how sad he was and all that. I would say depressed. Yeah. We'd go for walks and all that. He was just, Harry was full of, humor and all that. No, no more. Very, yeah. He was down all the time and all that. What could we do? Tried to cheer him up. Nothing worked. So one morning, we're walking there. It means, the roads near Meherazad, where Erich would take his morning walk. And Erich told me this way, so I'm going to tell it the way he told me. A farmer comes. Erich said, have you seen with the red turbans and all that? I said, yes. He said, yeah, someone like that, old man with the red turban, all that. He comes toward us. And I say to myself, oh God, I have to protect Harry now. This man might stop him and all that. And Harry, could be very explosive, like, what is it? Who is this? And push this. So he was concerned for the farmer too, if the, if he came upon Harry and tried to greet him and all that. Because the farmer was coming right up to Harry, like he was going to take him and embrace him, right? Like that. And Erich said, oh God. And so Erich intervenes and and says to the farmer in whatever language, Marathi, I suppose, he says, just take his hand. It means take Harry's hand. That's all. To keep this from getting explosive and not to surprise Harry. And so the farmer reaches out and finds Harry's hand, and they take hands, and Harry's holding on to his hand like that. And Harry's asking, things, about him. Who are you? A farmer. Yeah. What is your age? 74. Yeah. Yeah. And like that. And then at some point, the farmer lets go of Harry's hand and he reaches up and he touches Harry's chin like this, like Baba used to do. And then he goes. Erich told me this, which is not in the account that I've read, or one of the accounts I read somewhere of this story. But I will tell you, Erich said to me, he said, when he left and we started to walk again, I looked behind to see where he had gone, means the farmer, and there was no one. No one. Later back at Meherazad, Harry is now thinking, who is this man? Who is this man? And the women were thinking also. Mara was thinking. Mara said to Mani, was it Baba? And Harry was saying, was it Baba? Harry said, you know, he touched me. And that was Baba. It was Baba. And Harry said, must be. And Harry then said, H, why in the hell didn't you let me embrace him? That's not in the story either. That's what Erich told me. He got fiery at Erich. But you see, after that, Harry was a new man. His old self, you know, blustery, funny, loud. And he went home because he had now been with him. So, of course, the beloved can appear in many forms we don't know. That story reminds me of the stories after the resurrection of Jesus, when some of the disciples in those immediate sightings didn't recognize him physically. Can you imagine? The first person to see him, the first outside the tomb, was Mary Magdalene, who had gone to the tomb weeping and weeping. And when she looked inside, it was empty except for the two angels that she saw there. And she said, where have you taken my Lord? Tell me. And as she said that, she looked around and there was this figure, this man behind her. And she said, she thought he was the gardener. And she said, what have you done with him? Where is my Lord? And he looked at her and he said, Mary. And then she knew it was Jesus. So he can appear. We have to be alert. You know, you never know the guise that the beloved may take. There's, of course, the famous, very famous instance of St. Francis of Assisi early in his time of becoming who he became. And Francis, as many of you may know, had a great fear and abhorrence of lepers. You know, I mean, real fear. So when he would be traveling on his horse or walking, and he would hear bells ringing, you know how they did to warn people that they were coming, the lepers would wear bells in their feet and all that. So you could hear them from a distance coming. Whenever he would hear bells, Francis would immediately get off the road, take a long detour so he could avoid seeing them or encountering lepers. He was deeply afraid, phobia, if you will, of lepers. So one day he's riding along the road and he looks up and he sees a leper coming towards him. And then in his mind, Francis says to himself, I must not have this fear. Christ would not want it. And so he got off of his horse. He went over to the leper and he embraced the leper and he kissed the leper. And then he gave the leper some money. Then he got back on his horse and started to ride away. But then he stopped And he looked around to see where the leper had gone, and there was no one there. And in that moment, he knew that was the Christ. That was Jesus himself. And since that moment, all that fear washed away, and Francis became especially in love with the lepers and spent much time with them, helping them, washing them, taking care of them, and all that for the rest of his life. There's another wonderful instance that many of you might know of, another of Baba's favorites. You know, Francis was one of his favorites, Catherine of Siena was one, Augustine, and the other one was Saint Teresa of Avila, which person Christopher is going to talk about soon with all of you. So Saint Teresa was very familiar, you see, with Jesus. I mean, she felt very familiar. She made Jesus her companion all the time, right? And sometimes, therefore, he would appear to her in human form. So the wonderful incident that one of her nuns recorded is the day that they were traveling to found another convent. They were on some road in, you know, rural Spain, and the downpour began. And it was a torrential downpour. And it was so bad that the road began to flood. The side of the road, the water was filled, and it became life-threatening. You know, one slipped and they would be fall into the ditch and all that. They could drown and all that. So they were struggling to get through this. And Teresa, in the middle of this struggle, they're outside the cart, you know, trying to keep it from falling and trying to keep from falling into the water, keep the horses from falling. And she cries out to the Lord for help. And he appears to her. And she says, Lord, when will you stop putting obstacles in our path? We're doing your work. And he said, do not complain, daughter. This is how I treat my friends. And she looked at him and she said, well, perhaps that is why you have so few. which is one of my very favorite stories of Saint Teresa. It's why you have so few. He can come at any time, any moment, in any form. We don't know. And these miraculous experiences that are wonderful to share, I think are so inspiring and beautiful, of his constant presence, you know, his appearance and all that. But yeah, they are the miraculous side of things, if you will, the special side of the story. But I was thinking, you know, and I'll end with this, that there's another way that's more frequent, that Baba makes himself available to us personally. If only we have eyes to see. And this is from him. Baba tells us that it's not. He's most immediate. He's most available, not through visions or signs or appearances, but he's most available through another guise entirely. And what is that guise? Baba says that it's each and every person we encounter in our daily life. And think of how many times Baba said this And I didn't pay much attention. I am the ancient one, he said. Remember that? The one residing in every heart. Therefore, love others, make others happy, serve others, even at discomfort to yourself. This is to love me. Another time he said, try to remember that I am in everyone, every man, woman, and child. Be happy, live naturally, but serve me and others as much as you can. And then when he was in the United States in 1956, one of the things he said was, one of the two most important ways to love God, he said, what is it? Renunciation is one way. Renounce everything, give up everything and all that. He said, but the other way, the way he prefers, to love God, is always to do one thing. I mean, have your life, enjoy it, do things, have a family, a job, go to the theater and all that. Baba said, do all that. But to love God, you do always, in the midst of all that, do one thing. What is the one thing? Baba said, constantly think, constantly try to make others happy, even at the cost of your own happiness. That is loving God. Where's the guise that he puts on? It's that person that we see each day on the grocery store, on the street. That's the guise. Elizabeth knew this. She didn't talk about it. But when Baba dropped the body and she knew he was not going to return to the center in Myrtle Beach, what did she do? She kept the center in readiness for Baba to be there, as though he were coming. And she told us everything had to be ready for him. And for a while, I didn't understand what she meant. And then I saw when the people came and great numbers started to come, she treated them as though Baba were coming. You see? The readiness was for them. Because for her, Baba was coming through each person who came through that green gate. That was Baba coming. Because she trained with Baba to know that that's who he is. He may not look like it. He may not act like it. He may be annoying. He may have long hair. He may be strange. But that's who he is. Kitty was the same way, you know. Kitty would sit in that little book room, she called it, because in those days you could only get a book by going to that little room, or you could take your problems there in that little room, you know. So she had these people flowing in and out, sitting all over the porch, waiting for their time with Kitty, you know. And Kitty greeted each person who came through that screen door as though it was Baba coming through that screen door. The same love, kindness, interest. You see, the Baba trained her to be that way. No Kitty got in the way between her and this person. Did she like this person? Did she not like this person? And, you know, none of those things. It was Baba sent this person. So this is Baba coming. And then perhaps the most wonderful example for me of all the, well, not most wonderful, but a wonderful example was Dr. Gohair. Any of you who saw Dr. Gohair with her patients knew this. You didn't have to be told. Dr. Gohair treated each of those patients like she treated Baba when she treated his form, his physical form. The same love and kindness, careful treatment of each person. Baba. And at the same time, Elizabeth and Kitty and Dr. Gohair didn't think, oh, I am doing this. I am helping this person. I am treating this person a certain way. No. They always remembered in the back of their mind, I do nothing. You know, it's all Bob. So, do we want Baba as our constant companion? Do we long to love and serve him every day? Then I would say that Baba gives us the answer. Look no further than each person we encounter each day. There he is. It's actually hard. For me, I try to practice that, but I find it quite difficult, easy to forget to do that, especially with some people. Some people it's easier, some people it's harder. It's like Baba said, and this reminds me of Francis and the leper. Baba said, start learning to love God by loving those you find it most difficult to love. Yeah. So I'll end with Lenora because she's in my neighborhood and it's just a lovely personal thing to say at the end here. She sits, there's a bench of some sort next to the entrance to the Catholic Church, maybe 5-6 blocks from our house. And she sits there. She's not always there, but she's pretty frequently there. And when you walk by the church, there is Lenora, she's like the statue on the side of the church. She's sitting there. And, to picture her, I mean, to me, she kind of looks like Babajan, I mean, that look, the big hair and all that, except she's African-American, but, she has the hair and she has the sort of grizzled face, and, or maybe a Mastani. I've met one Mastani in Ahmednagar who kind of looked like this sitting in the road. She looks kind of like that also. And anyway, she sits there. And naturally, when we moved to this neighborhood, I would walk past, usually walking the dogs. And I would see her sitting there, There was no sign like I'm homeless, I need help, or a bucket to make it obvious that she needed some help or whatever. She just sat there, as far as I could tell. And I didn't hear her interact with people very much. I mean, if I came by and I waved and I smiled, she would wave and smile, and the dogs might bark, or she would, laugh and then move on. But one day I thought, who is she? So I never had spoken to her in the, walking by. So I went close to her, up to her for the first time. And, turns out she liked to talk. She wanted to talk. And she wanted to know about the dogs and so forth. So I told her and all that. And I asked her name. She asked me, I said, I'm Charles. And who are you? And she said, I'm Leonora. So it's a beautiful name, Leonora. And, I asked her about where she said she had a place to sleep, but she comes here every day and sits. I said, oh. And then as I was getting ready to leave, she said, just like this, she said, and I never heard her say this because she didn't talk to, I mean, people just walk by and back and forth. I didn't see people come up and talk to her very often. She said to me, do you have a little something that could help me? And so I thought, oh gosh, I guess she means money. And then who carries cash anymore? Right? I mean, sometimes I carry a Starbucks card or something like that to give to unhoused people because I want to help, but I don't necessarily want to hand out money. In other words, I had the habit of doing that at the time. I didn't know, so I looked in my wallet, and fortunately, I had a little bit of cash, and I gave it to her. Oh, she said, "Thank you, Charles." And then I left. And subsequently, when I've gone by, sometimes I might have something or not. But if I go up to her and I start talking, if I go close enough, she says, do you have a little something that would help me? And now I think, yes, I do. I have his name. And so I began to say his name inwardly to her. I didn't know what she meant, but yes, I do. And she's so happy. When I reach out to her, she's so happy. And God help me. There's part of me that has wanted to go up to her and to say, Papa, is that you? Because we don't know. And of course, it is him. It is him. And I asked Papa for the grace to try to see him in everyone. Because he's all around. We are never separate from him. Jai Baba.
Charles, thank you.
Thank you.
I keep thinking of that poem that Baba wrote. I think it was for, I don't know if it was Harry Kenmore or Duncan, about just you and me in the moonlight, just you and me. Now, a few people have asked, so I have to bring it up, that the poem that you wrote for Baba. So just wondering if you'd share it.
Oh, yes. think I know where it is. Oh, of course I do. Just a sec. I do have it. Just a have to laugh. You mentioned it. I mean, I mentioned it, so it's on me. But uh, I do write poems sometimes, but only Christopher sees them. So because they're not really good, even now they're not very good. And I think I have it here. Let me see. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Uh, Not as easy to find as I thought it might be. Let's see. I know it was sent to India and and then we kept it. Gosh, maybe Christopher knows. Just a sec.
Charles, isn't it something about stiff as any board?
You're muted. You're muted, Charles.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's one of the lines, one of the bad lines in it. Uh, yeah, was trying to make things rhyme. It was, I think Ada Schifrin actually put it in that children's book that she did. So actually, I think it was out there for a while. I have a, let me see. Maybe someone else has a question while I
Anyone have a question?
Yeah, we do have, every time we see the orange guy, it's a real challenge
Yes,
to
Oh,
to to love.
yes.
and I see another hand up. Well, there's a few. All right, go ahead, Betty.
About giving in India, giving to beggars is a real dilemma. I don't know if you have anything to say about that. It's different when it's just one-on-one. And yeah, it's a quandary. Yeah. I don't know if you
Well,
have it.
when we were in India in 1962 for the East-West Gathering, Baba had a general order that we were not to give to beggars. And the clear reason for that was that, of course, once you do, Westerners particularly in that setting, then all these people come and the kids especially. And so it can become a real problem and a hassle and for everybody and even dangerous. So, and plus there's a whole beggar caste or class so that you're really giving to people this is their profession, as it were. Some of them actually mutilate their children in order to gain more money. And so Erich explained all this to me, that my impulse, obviously to give. And he said, but here's how here's how it is. You can help, but this is not going to help in that way. There are other ways to help people who are in need, who really are in need, and so forth and so on. But as I went around India with Erich later, I noticed he was giving. I said, Erich, you tell me not to give, and here you are. Did you find it? Oh, okay, come on. Is it? Oh, just a minute. Christopher wants to just come, just a second. I'll be right back. Yeah, come. No, it's not in there. It's in that book of all my letters and such, isn't it? No, okay. Didn't I publish in I thought in this book I had published it. No, I thought so.
I
Between
think that's
we can't
might be a sign to
get rid
that,
of
no, as a teaser for your next talk.
Oh yes, build a whole talk around a bad poetry. Oh, you found it. Christopher found it. How did you find that? It was in the introduction. Okay, I found it. All right.
Feel better soon.
I'll get back to the beggar story. Here's what I wrote wandering around the center. I have love. That's the title of it too. I have love. I have the earth below and the heavens above. I have the trees and grass, but most of all, I have love. I have love from Baba, my master and my Lord. My love for him is everlasting and thick as any board.
Lovely.
I know he is always in my heart, and when he calls for me, I will go like a dart. And so I have the earth below and the heavens above. I have the trees and grass, but most of all, I have love.
That's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing.
well, Baba
And I
liked
like
it.
the board. I like the board. Thick as a board. I like that.
Yeah. Later, I was thinking maybe I could change that.
No, don't change a thing. He read it. It's original.
Anyway, I will just say this last thing. So I asked Erich, I said, "You're giving to beggar." Yeah, but part of the reason he did was to help us, you see, because then people wouldn't surround us if they knew he was going to give them, and that would be it. So part of it was to protect us, but also, you know, Baba would have them sometimes give like that. And if they did, if they gave something with Baba's permission, or Baba had them give something to someone, you know, in need, Erich said, Baba told us to say, this is a gift from God. Accept it and oblige him. This is a gift from God. Accept it and oblige him. So, yeah, so I try to remember that if I'm ever in that position. And oh gosh, okay. Now someone had something, and yeah.
Yeah, there's another hand up. Is that what you're?
Bobby? Yeah.
iPad. Thank you, Charles.
Yes.
So someone has an iPad that had their hand up. Did they want to share?
Yes, it's Rosalie. Jai Baba, Charles.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I wanted to just share one line from the Mayor Baba journals. Narina Macchiavelli wrote, "A stroll with the master along the holy Ganges." And I love this line so much that we put it to music and we go around the house singing it, because it's, well, you just see for yourself. It says, this very last line in this article, love and sing in comma, love and sing in. Love life's use in praise, in loving me, in all, in any. It made me think of that with that lady saying, can you give me a little something? Is there a little something? Because I found such somethings in I call it Baba Via Narina. And the unfortunate thing, I think, is people look on her, her glamour, her this, her that. And when I see pictures of Baba with Narina, I just see such, total devoted love. So it was interesting, like anything I would share actually out of Narina's gift, people would immediately say, oh, that sounds like Narina. I says, no, you don't know what Narina sounded like, and it's not Narina. I think it's interesting. I mean, one time I was in the little book room with Kitty, and I said, "Oh, Kitty, look what I found!" And it was a little invitation to one of Narina's talks, and she shredded it right in front of me. She went, "Oh, that's the past. That's the past." But I remember that here in the present, and also something that Scott McCaig asked her about that time, the blue bus time, and she says, "What was it like?" And Kitty kind of said, like, "Well, Narina, we were thinking that we wanted to change the wording, and Baba said to Kitty said this, shared this, don't change one word. This is for the future. You are children." And they were beautiful children, every one of them that I ever met. So, childlike in their faith and love, their love contact with Baba, every single one, even the ones I had substantial difficulty with. Padre, he was hard for me. But anyway, I wanted to share that because it's such a treasure, actually in plain view. And anyway, I just wanted to share that because your story brought it up. It's like, what little something. I know the other day someone here in Myrtle Beach, looked in such pain. I just could feel the person's pain, and you always want to, one of these, Baba speaking to Narina, it's about pain, and it's so beautiful because I cannot accept it any other way. It all seems like just talk. But this, I was reading it just this morning, and it's so, it's such a gift because Baba never said the manifestation was going to be easy. No, he just said he would manifest, and I see it how it is. And, when I see a person in such pain, I think whatever is available, is like that woman to you. Like, can you give me a little something? Because, anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thanks for
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Baba.
Jai Baba, Charles.
Well, Charles, there's quite a few things in the chat just saying thank you and what a wonderful morning it's been with you. And I kind of feel bad because I messed up that quote about inscribe these words in your heart.
Nothing is real but God. Nothing matters but love for God. Yes.
Thank you. Stay well.
Well, it's wonderful to be with you, all of you, and Amartithi, you know, coming up. This is such a special time. I always think of it as Amartithi, the 31st all the way to the 7th, the day of the internment, when you know, Baba told him he would be completely free in 7 days. So I always think of that as sort of the period of time to celebrate Baba with us in all these various ways. Anyway, and this has been such a wonderful thing. Thank you for the opportunity to share Baba and to remember him at Amartithi. So many wonderful friends on here, people I've known for so long, and I, gosh, just wish we were in the same room and could embrace one another. But anyway, send you all love.
In pristine condition.
Thank you, Charles. This was wonderful. As usual, very beautiful, straight from the heart, and flooding us all with your love for Baba and your beautiful stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mikhail.
Jai Baba.
Do we take a moment of silence?
Yes.
Great.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Thank you, Charles.
Glad you found the poem, Charles. It was worth the effort.
Yeah, Christopher found it. He knows where everything.
Great.
Thank you, Christopher.
You're a good team.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Everybody. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Baba, guys. Thanks.
Jai Baba.
Thank you so much.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Charles. Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba, Charles.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruthie.
Oh, such a pleasure, Charles. Thank you. It's good to see you.
What a story about the accident. My goodness.
God. I know it was a very dramatic way to meet Charles Haynes. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Um,
Jai Baba, everybody.
Baba, Jai Baba.
Baba.
Sorry, thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, everyone.
Jai Baba. Thanks, Ruthie.
Pleasure, Pam. Good to see you today.
Good to
Ruthie,
see you.
we want to see a picture of you from back then.
It's kind of hard to even.
She looks the same. She looks just the same.
Well, I think so, but you know, once you put the picture up, the reality, it's
Everything's an illusion, Ruthie.
Thank you, darling. Absolutely. Absolutely. Inscribe these words in your heart. God alone is real. Nothing else matters but love for God.
Boy,
Yeah.
hard to say goodbye. This is just like being with Baba.
Now, Pam, you have a concert coming up next week?
Yeah, a week from today.
Okay, so I'll put that out so people know.
And
Thank you.
Christopher is speaking on St. Teresa of Avila on Saturday, February 3rd. I believe that's next Saturday, yeah.
Saturday, yeah. At 11?
11.
Yeah, I hope he's feeling better.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
COVID is a wicked stick. It definitely hits you hard. So just putting that out too, just to make sure he's okay.
You want to stop recording, Ruthie?
I thought I did. Hi, Jay.